All right, guys, so we are here at another episode of the Leads to Deal podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals, and everything we talk about leads to deals. This episode is sponsored by SynergyData.io, the #1 data source for distressed sellers in the motivated REI space. Today, I'm super honored to have in office, in studio, a gentleman that I've been following for a very long time. He goes on IG by the name of Blue Notes, Brandon. Brandon, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me. Just want to quickly say that you need to do this. If you decide to come on a podcast, which you should, it has to be in person, man. Spend that bag, come out here. It's honestly not that bad because it's cost effective, but the energy, the synergy, the vibe here is through the roof. And I definitely want to come back. Hopefully part 2 will be soon.
Yeah, and so I guess let's start there. So again, guys and gals who are watching this who don't know too much outside of the podcast, we're actually here in my call center where we built the studio out inside of the executive wing of my office. But right outside the glass, on the other side of this camera, is a 200-person enterprise level call center. And so with your sales experience, with your knowledge of the sales industry and the REI space, what were your first thoughts walking in here today, and kind of what's your takeaway so far?
Man, honestly, like I told you before, I felt like it was like Wolf of Wall Street, boiler room type vibe. I mean, looking at the windows, there's objections, rebuttals, there's soccer balls where they throw them at them. It's like, hey, what would you say if this happened? People going crazy when a lead comes in. I think that it's just really, really good. I guess you say culture here. It's just something amazing, man. I feel like this is a one of one, to be honest. Honestly, it's just I'm amazed by what you've done here, what you've built. And I think that I see the reason why you're successful.
So what's cool is that Brandon doesn't know this, but I've obviously known you longer than you've known me. Like, I've known about you, I've been following you. And so for us, we kind of hustle in silence, but I already had my eyes out on certain people in this industry that I'd love to one day get on the podcast. And so for me, I think you and your energy that you present online, the avatar, the way that you communicate, the way you carry yourself is very much in line with our culture here, right? And so one of the things we always say is real recognize real, and you're looking familiar. And so following your journey now for a while over the past couple of years since I first got into this space, like, I'm an honored guest because I'm a fanboy. Like, not only do we have this operation here, but you're one of the people that I've always wanted to get to know more of. So legitimately, this is the first time that we've ever met, which was today. We just recently started communicating, but I've been following his journey for a while. So if you will, because this is a sales-focused podcast, for sure, I want to hope that anybody who's watching this, who is either in the sales space or considering going into the sales space, really starts to appreciate what it can do for their lives. And I don't mean sale just as like transaction-based. I mean the art of communication, being able to control a conversation, being able to lead somebody to a desired outcome. So what is your sales? Like, when did you realize like you had a knack for speaking, or you had like some talent for sales?
Yeah, I mean, in all reality, I guess it started off with being a class clown. Like, a lot of the times when I was nervous about things, a lot of times I didn't know things, I would just either make a joke about it, or I would get, somebody to go ahead and take my notes, do my homework, help me out. I was always able to go ahead and provide some type of value, and vice versa. And I think that that's one of the biggest things, is that sometimes it's looked at as a negative context. Growing up in the States, as far as going to school, it's looked at as a, if you lash out, if you do this or that, you're supposed to be disciplined, you're supposed to be able to control yourself. But in all reality, you're remembered for the rules that you break.
Amen.
Woo. So with that being said, and I'm going to be talking a little bit later on, with your team here at the call center. But earlier we were talking about how, your dad was a plumber, and people around you were this, that, and a third, obviously trade jobs and that's in that nature. But if you would have followed suit and obviously followed the rules, you wouldn't be a multi-millionaire. So at the end of the day, a lot of the times Elon Musk will never die, right? Trump will never die. Martin Luther King will never die, because they actually decided to break the rules and follow their dreams.
So what I love what you said there too is not only obviously where you can go, but how you started to be in the class clown.
Yeah.
I think if the hood really knew about wholesaling, we could prevent a lot of young men and women from getting in trouble, particularly men from getting in trouble, because they're out there hustling, trying to make $100, $200, $500.
Yeah.
They don't even know about the bags that come with it. And I think for me, in what cities you grew up in?
So I was born and raised in Queens, New York, and then I moved to Florida.
All right. So like, I'm sure we come from at least a similar structure where if you don't have a lot of money, when you're there with your boys, one of the things is it's almost like a cutthroat environment of love. You're always cracking jokes with each other. You always, like, it's ruthless sometimes. Barbershop environment.
Yeah.
But if you can thrive in that barbershop environment and you're fast and quick with it, you really should consider the art of sales.
Yeah.
You can really go out there and navigate the self, because there's so many kids out there that don't understand. It's like, yo, I'm quick, I can throw jokes, I stay on top of my toes, I know where the punchline is coming from.
Yeah.
Those people who can navigate that would be excellent in sales. And so for yourself, what was like the first time you started applying that barbershop quick wit to a profession?
Well, I guess that you can say the first thing was, honestly, I started cutting hair. So I sweeped at a barbershop for a long time until I learned how to cut hair. You know, I was in the beginning, I was pushing people's hairlines back, doing all of that, sweeping, learning how to do all of that. And then afterwards, it was more so, I just started to identify that I could actually get paid more. My tips would actually be bigger and hefty when I was literally about them. When I would ask them, you know, hey, well, what do you do? What do you spend your time with? Like, while you're here? And sometimes men, they just go to the barbershop just to get away from their house. And I started to realize that this isn't just a cut, but it's an experience. And once I made an experience for somebody, they actually were paying me more money. They would come and they would actually, you know, enjoy their time while I cut their hair. That's why I was like, wow, you know, this is crazy. I can maybe just get an extra $3 to $5. And that's the thing, right? With society, sometimes they want you to save your way to wealth, but you have to invest your way to wealth. But it's all about also how much money you make. So I knew that I was, you know, there was a cap on what I could do. And then that's when I started to expand, obviously, to higher and better things, which was real estate.
And so for me, I think that's almost like sales by default. Like, you don't understand you're becoming a sales professional, but what you're doing is you're providing value by giving the people the topic that they enjoy the most, which is themselves. You're having them talk about themselves. And so it's like, yes, everybody can provide a crisp fade, but who can also provide a crisp fade and a place to relax, a place to feel comfortable, a place to talk about myself, and kind of a way to vent. And that's what I tell these guys and gals on the phone. I was like, you know, one of the reasons why these people stay with you long on the phone is it's almost therapeutic.
Yeah.
Like, if you can create a friend, this person knows I'll never talk to this cold caller again, my agent.
Yes.
And I can vent, and they can tell us about their ex-wife and the reason why they cheated her. They can tell us about their daughter who's living in their house, who's got a drug addiction. And if you create a rapport, you're providing a value, even if it's in exchange for $3 to $5, but you're providing a value above and beyond just the cut.
Yes. No, 100%. That's why I told you earlier, like, people come because of the brand and stay because of the product. I think it's so true. You have to deal with empathy. Like, nobody likes to obviously sit there and talk with somebody and they're the topic of discussion. Like, imagine we have a conversation and you're just only talking about yourself. At the end of the day, it's a law of reciprocity, right? You give, and then you're gonna receive. Sometimes it's not a direct ROI, but you're gonna get it back in abundance, you know? So I think that in school, they tell you to not be a copycat, but really, as long as you copy the right cat, you will always win. And one of my biggest hacks in life was getting around the right people, because I just learned to buy their mistakes at their expense, you know? And what I just noticed is a lot of the people that make a lot of money, we actually spend our money buying time versus obviously time to get, or money to get time. So it's just one of those things where I think that in school, they should be teaching sales, they should be teaching marketing, they should be teaching money management. Like, we all make money, right? And you're really either a seller or a buyer. And most of the times you're a consumer. Like, I don't know what the statistic is, but I'm pretty sure 90% of us are always consuming. We're always buying. We're always, you know, doing things to get that little want. It's always that little want. I call it a pre-nut. It's like you get 1,000, you spend 1,000. You don't know how to control yourself.
Well, that's the thing too. If you think about it from the politics level too, every time they do something where they're like, hey, we're going to give now to the needy, essentially what they're doing is they're giving to the wealthy. It's just got to touch the hands of the needy first, because they aren't taught money management. They aren't taught sales. They aren't taught how to invest in themselves. So every time they touch some type of government program, it immediately goes back up to the wealthy. They just can't hand it directly to the wealthy. It's got to go through the lower rungs of society, because they know it is just a stopping point. No one's going to preserve it there at that level.
100%. I agree.
So, barbershop. But even when you was in the barbershops, probably similar to with your homeboys, maybe you didn't realize exactly what it is that you were doing. And did you consider it sales at that time, or you were just...
No, I just consider it being myself. I guess that I've always been a nosy person. Like, I've always wanted to know, like, hey, what do you have going on, right? Like, how can I help you? And how can I, if I help you, then hopefully you can help me, and then we can make money together. So I've always been that type of person to always be like, there's more to life. I'm a big, I guess, advocate on looking at what's going on in other people's lives. Like, around me, like, my mom always worked paycheck to paycheck, like one paycheck away from being homeless. And my grandma worked 30 years in the hotel industry cleaning. And I'm just like, okay, well, what did they do wrong, right? Or what do I not want to do? And let me do the opposite. And that's what I started to do with the barbershop. It was more so like, I either, to make more money, I either cut more heads, right? I have to cut more people, but then I have to spend more time, which I don't want to do, right? And then second was either I charge more, but my competition is right next to me, which is obviously pretty difficult to do. And then last but not least was when you become an owner, but a lot of the owners were still working in the barbershop cutting hair. So a lot of the times what I like to tell people, man, and just going back to even sales, sometimes you have to promote yourself. Sometimes you have to go in there and let yourself known like, hey, I am worth more. Because society will put a dollar in it. A lot of times people are like, man, I'm upset because they only give me a 50-cent raise or a $1 raise. But in all reality, that's what you started at. Like when you applied for that job, you knew what you were gonna get paid. In all reality, what did you expect to get an extra $100 by the end of the year? So as your skill sets build, your stock value goes higher. You start to obviously get a resume. Let's figure out that in corporate America. And then that's really a form of marketing and sales because you're selling yourself to obviously get higher pay.
That's one of the things I share with the kids, exactly what you just said. It's like coming in here, you're gonna learn how to present yourself better. Even if you're only with me for 6 months to a year, we're gonna teach you how to sell the number one asset you have, which is yourself. You're gonna sell yourself over the phone, you're gonna sell yourself to your new girlfriend, you're gonna sell yourself to your parents, you're gonna sell yourself to the cop who pulls you over. The power of communication is strong, and the thoughts of escaping the barbershop, because I know there's a lot of cats that have been in the barbershop game for decades. So what was your first step out of the barbershop and into, like, again, a little bit more refined or structured sales type of environment, or when it started to finally click?
When it started to finally click for me, man, was honestly, I looked around and I seen people that were 10, 12, 15 years older than me that didn't know how to file taxes because there's a lot of cash-based transactions. Weren't able to get, financing or loans for homes. And I just told myself, man, this might not be the best thing for retirement. And I think a lot of the times what we do is that we sacrifice tomorrow's happiness for today's sadness, right? We live on a day-to-day, basis. And for me, it was like, you know what? I just have to try something else. And then that's when I pivoted to, let me just go ahead and do the corporate thing, right? So I went to community college, tried that whole thing out. It took me 5 years to get a 2-year degree because I spent my Pell Grant money on a bunch of BS. Not my books and stuff. And then honestly, started transporting at a hospital, getting paid minimum wage. And quickly after that, finally got my degree. It was like a 5-year span of doing all three things, working at the barbershop, going to community college, and then obviously working at the hospital. And I just thought it was a scam. Like, I think that corporate America is a scam. And the reason why I say scam is because we're still confused about money. We're confused about how money works. We actually think that we need to, go and basically put time in,
Right.
For somebody else. And the thing is that a lot of you guys out there, when it comes down to sales, it's just, you just have to have the balls to be able to say, you know what, I can do this. I can do this and I will do this. And at the end of the day, even though I'm looking through this telescope and only I can see what I see and I give it to Scott and he can't see it, well, that's okay, because success rings bells. And the more people you sell, the more people you help, the more people you impact, you'll be able to go ahead and get it right back 10 times more.
One of my favorite mentors, and I only met him, I saw him a couple times live in person, but it was Zig Ziglar. But one of his quotes that really rocked my world and changed it at a young, formidable age, it was, you can have everything that you want out of life if you just help enough people get what they want out of life.
100%.
And so for me, I always took that into my sales cycle, which is, okay, if I truly believe in this product, that means I'm helping you. Because if I believe, first off, never sell a product that you don't believe in. If you wouldn't sell it to your mom, if you wouldn't sell it to your cousin, if you wouldn't help your boy at the bar with whatever it is, get out, because people are going to smell that fake commission breath, and it's going to hurt your soul, and it's going to put bad energy into the sales universe. There is a sales god, I'm telling you. You got to put the good stuff in to get the good stuff out. But if I believe, then I am going to help you, because the more I help you, the more the universe will help me back, and I get to make money along the way while being paid handsomely to do a good thing. And so once I found that mindset and mentality, I really took it very seriously and started my sales journey, where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be, in your situation, a barber. I'm not going to be a roofer. I don't want to be a plumber. I don't want to work with my hands. I don't want to come home sweaty. I have no disrespect for those professions at all, because a lot of times those guys come home happy.
Yeah.
They come home exhausted. I get it. but their stress level is way different than my stress level, and they probably have more time to make memories with their kids for the most part, especially during the hustle phase.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to treat it just as serious as if I would have went to college. I'm going to start studying sales. I'm going to start studying my objections and rebuttals, studying the great. And so for you, once you decide to, hey, listen, forget this hospital gig, where did your next journey go? Like, how did you get towards now?
Yeah, so in all reality, at that point in time, I was partying a lot, man. I was going out to the clubs, hanging out with my friends a lot. And one of my close friends and mentor, he actually was the COO at the time of the hospital. And we used to go out, man, and I, like a lot of the times, you know, they would buy bottles, VIP and stuff like that, and they would be like, you know, hey, you're gonna drink, and I used to say, no, I'm not gonna drink because I didn't have money to put in.
Yep.
And it just comes to a point in time, man, where in all reality, you get tired of being broke. You get tired of being that one person that can't go to this because of money. And money is the root of all evil, but it is what makes the world spin. And I always told myself, you know what, I want to be able to tell my children, my family, my grandma, my mom, this, whatever. I want to be able to tell them no because I didn't want to, not because I didn't have their money. And what really started to shift in my mindset was that the want of having things that I couldn't do because of money. And then number two was just I started reading books, and I started to understand that every relationship is an asset or a liability. I started to audit my circle, going through like the top 5 on my phone and saying, okay, well, this person isn't going to do it. They're not going to be the ones that's obviously going to go ahead and take the trips to Puerto Rico or be able to, you know, help a family with taxes. They're not going to be able to put a potluck together. They're not going to be able to host a baby shower at their house. And I feel like every relationship, you know, is an asset or liability in some way when it comes down to maybe sexual, religious, recreational, or even business, right? And I think that there's a point in time that you have to literally divorce your old self to literally be the person that you want to be. So I started reading books like Outwitting the Devil, and something that resonated. Yeah. It's a great book. And, you know, that book really, really resonated with me because it said, you fear the devil, but you don't trust your God. And I started to tell myself, wow, that is crazy. Like, it's so true. I started to realize how, you know, even the school system and how we're indoctrinated and how society is, that we've been always basically put in this fear-based like society. Like, why is red a bad color? Right? Like, why is this and that? You know, and obviously it's a lot of religious stuff, but a lot of the times we're limited to what we have to do. For example, why is it so hard for us to go ahead and get a business credit card, right? You have to provide this, but you go and get a personal credit card, they give you 30K.
Yep.
Right? Why is it that when you leave the dealership, you have to have car insurance, but when you leave the hospital, you don't have to have life insurance? So at the end of the day, you have to understand that you have to go out there and chase your nut. Like, you have to go out there and do what God put you on this earth to do, but the only person that will believe in you is you, because a lot of the people that you're around right now, they just haven't been able to do that.
It's one of the things I'm gonna focus in on my meeting today with the team. We have a lot of new people out there on the sales floor, but you know, I heard a story when I was roughly their age. It says an old man is sitting on his front porch, a kid's walking by, and there's a beagle laying right beside the old man in the rocking chair, and the beagle's howling, making all these noises. The kid walks by the front porch. He says, "Hey, mister, what's wrong with your dog?" The old man turns to him and says, "Well, he's laying on a nail." And he says, "Well, why doesn't the dog just move?" And the old man says, "Because the pain isn't bad enough."
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of these kids are. It's like they're laying on a nail. They have these bad friends. They have these bad vices. The pain isn't great enough. They know that they're in pain. They're screaming, but it just ain't moving them yet. And it's about identifying that pain and getting off that damn nail, because yes, it's more comfortable to not have to move. But damn if your life won't be better once you get up, once you get away from that nail, you identify those nails and you stay away from those nails in your life. And so when you talked about the 5 most important people in your phone, I know that when I was young, and for those guys and gals that are watching this, I didn't have 5 people I wanted to associate with because I knew that I was going to be the average. So I found them in books. And this is really before YouTube really started taking off, but I made sure that I could find my mentors in books until I grew to a stage where I could find them in real life. And so it sounds like you took a similar journey, particularly with Napoleon Hill and some of these other guys.
Yeah. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Honestly, I think that this is all a mental thing. It's all a mental game. You have to understand that generational wealth is not transferred through real estate or assets or any of that. It's actually transferred through education, which is why I end up buying properties for 30, 40, 60 cents on the dollar, because a lot of these people did the right thing. They ended up working 30 years, ended up, leaving their house to their kids, but since their kids weren't educated enough, they end up selling it to people like us, where we obviously sell them, right? We look at that pain, we're able to go ahead and extract that, and we're able to say, hey, listen, we'll go ahead and fill that 24, 48 hour, 30 month, 30 day void, And it's unfortunate. So that's why a lot of the times a product that you can never go broke from is intellectual property. Like as long as you understand your stock, you know what's in your mind, people will always want to pay for that. And that's why sales is so important, because you're always getting sold. I mean, think about Black Friday, how much money they make on it. And let's just break that down really quickly, right? Because what are you actually doing? What you're doing is that you're feasting, you're overindulging, you're putting yourself in a state of, I forgot what it's called scientifically, right? But that feeling of I feel relaxed.
Yes.
And then you go out there, since you're relaxed, you are okay to go ahead and get ripped off on these BOGOs and these deals and all this other good shit, right?
Unnecessary spending.
Unnecessary spending. And then what ends up happening, right, is that now you've been sold, but then you actually buy the worst investment, which is a TV, which is a electronic device, which is whatever, to be put back in the matrix to just literally be succumb to what society wants you to do. Society doesn't want you to be an entrepreneur, which is why it's so hard for us in today's society to do that.
Yo, Black Friday, here's what you need to buy yourself: a dry erase board, some markers, some dry erase markers, and a couple of books. I'm telling you, if you guys would just not take that TV money and buy that TV money and write out, right now is the perfect time to start focusing on the 2024 goals. We're recording this about a month before 2024. We're in November.
If you haven't started yet, you're right.
Exactly, because you should put that much thought into how did you end for your 2023 goals, and then more importantly, where are you carrying over for your 2024 goals? So I like what you said about that. Now going back into your journey, where did you start entering the REI space? Because most of our people who are following at this juncture are kind of in the REI space. First off, did you come from a family with any type of REI investments?
So my dad is in real estate. I didn't meet him until I was 14. Basically just put it simple. My dad was married. He had my brother a little earlier on, cheated on his wife and my mom, had me as the middle child, and then obviously had my sister after. So I didn't grow up with my dad. I was basically that redheaded stepchild, and I didn't meet him or my brother or sister till I was 14. So when I met him, obviously he was like this rich lifestyle. I shared a bedroom with my grandma at the age of 16. So at the end of the day, I met him, and one of the things that resonated with me was like, I asked him, I said, hey, how did, you make all this money, how did you get away with just paying my mom on like 200 something bucks, in child support? And he was like, being able to be honest, because I'm a real estate investor, I am able to write off a lot of what I do, and it's a tax depreciating asset.
Yeah, what an uncomfortable conversation.
But I respected it though. Because number one, as a man, we make mistakes. Women make mistakes. It is what it is, right? A lot of the Achilles heel for men are women and money. It's a big vice, right? And then second thing is like, you gotta respect it. I mean, if you end up having a mistake, of course, I definitely recommend you gotta take care of, obviously you bring it to this earth.
You guys don't depreciate the value you can pay to the baby mamas out there.
Yeah.
You'll stop that one today.
But at the end of the day, I respected that, and I said, well, okay, well, you know what? I want to make money too, but I also want to keep my money, because working at the hospital was like, damn, they're taking like, I don't even know, for this, and I never understood it. And then the second thing was when I was working at the barber shop, it was like, I'm not paying anything. So I'm like, so confused. So I was like, okay, well, that's crazy. I want to do what he's doing. And then the second thing was, being raised by two women, it's like, I want to be able to show him that I can be better than him, and he should never walked out. So I ended up just getting into real estate. And basically the story, to sum it up, was one day I was at Publix, which is a supermarket. And I was about 22 years old, and my grandma went to go buy the groceries, and her card declined.
Damn.
And I was there, she tried to get it declined, and there was a man behind us that ended up paying for our groceries. And I said, this will be the last day that I'll ever let anybody else dictate whether I'd eat or not.
Yo, so if you guys don't know, Publix got the best subs out there.
Yeah, pub sub, yeah, facts.
Tender subs. I do miss that. You asked me earlier what I miss about the United States. I miss some Publix. But dude, it's one of those called anchor moments, right? Like
Yes.
it's
It's an epiphany.
Yes.
Of it's what you call your hero's journey, from zero to hero, and everybody needs to have one. Sometimes people are like, man, I just went through a lot of stuff, and I'm like, listen, you have to, that past trauma is bullshit. I met somebody that was from Iraq, that was Catholic, that came over here to the United States and is a multi-millionaire. So whether you come from Compton, you come from the Bronx, I don't care where you come from, it's all about the decisions you make. That's why they say you were born looking like your parents, but you will die looking like your decisions.
Yo, I love that.
Yeah.
That's strong. So one of my anchor moments in my sales journey, I always tell people, is like, we were doing presentations, we were doing face-to-face presentations. We would have these people come in from all over the Eastern Seaboard, come to our sales floor. We would meet with them. I remember one time, they used to call it Hollywood, where it's like, hey, you would put on a Hollywood level performance, but sometimes the managers were so good, you didn't even realize you were an actor in your own little scheme there. And so we used to take them to this it was a timeshare resort. So we're selling them on these gorgeous rooms, gorgeous units. It was this place, dual showers, like way better. I was living in a Section 8 place in Williamsburg, Virginia at that time called Rolling Meadows. We called it Rolling Ghettos. So I'm living in Section 8, just got my first sales job, touring these people properties that timeshares that cost more than I made in my entire year, the previous job. And so we take them to this gorgeous place, right? And we show them this place, and then we come back to the table, and it would be like 42,000. And it was designed for them to say no.
Yeah.
And then the second manager will come in and say, hey, listen, we just got this one. It came back in from some other upgrade. I got this deal for you. It's 16,000, blah, blah, blah. And then you try to lock them up for the lower price. And it worked flawlessly. But I remember the first time I went to my manager, I was like, yo, but what happens if they want to buy that first one for 42? He's like, it doesn't exist. He's like, that literally isn't even purchasable. It's fake. It only exists to be able to anchor price them against this high to bring in this low. And to me, that was a real pivotal moment. I was like, okay, great. So there's people taking sales to this level that they're literally dropping $100,000 to build out this fake condo that doesn't exist to be able to create this environment in which now this other product feels better. I said, okay. And then I started researching the timeshare industry. The timeshare industry makes more money annual than the MLB. The MLB makes less billions than the timeshare industry. And so I said, I just wanted a piece of this. I wanted to understand this. So that was my first real sales job. You got in the REI space. Did you go directly from like, hey, out of the hospital industry to REI?
So just like anybody else, obviously, you know, it's like, hey, go become a realtor. So I went and got my real estate license, what I thought I needed to be. And yeah, I mean, for a whole year, I couldn't get anybody to help me, to help sell a house or list a house. And I was like, damn, I don't like this. I don't like being the decision maker. Like the whole point was to leave, you know, corporate America, be able to do what I want to do. And one of my pivotal things was like, I like holidays. I love being around the family, but fuck a holiday. Like every day should be a holiday. Like my birthday should be every day if I want it to be. Christmas, if I want to go ahead and make Christmas every day, it should be Christmas every day. So I was like, how can I make this to where it just makes sense to where I'm the decision maker and I'm in control? Because, you know, showing them 1,000 houses with a pink door that's 1,000 square feet and they still don't like it, whatever. So that's when I learned about real estate wholesaling, and that's how I got into that.
So I want to pause right there for a second. When I first got into the REI space, I have and still continued, and no disrespect, because I know there's a lot of good guys and gals that are realtors, but I came in with such a sour taste for realtors because I find that they're more, and this is wrong, and I'm sorry, but I find that they're more hobbyists than they are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That there is a thing about being a soccer mom or a soccer dad and doing this part-time, quarter-time, only being an order taker. And I came from such a savage sales cycle that seeing people who want to succeed by doing the bare minimum kind of turns my nose up towards them. So did you feel like you were just in the wrong shoes, and like how much more relieved did you feel, or was it intimidating leaving that more simple sales cycle to go direct to seller and try to address problems?
Yeah, I think it was more so that I just didn't know. I just didn't know. I thought that was the right thing to do. And I think to contribute to what you were saying is I think that realtor tag is sexy. I think it's a sexy name to say that you're a realtor, or to say that I'm, you know, selling real estate, because immediately people think that you make a lot of money, right? And a lot of these realtors are actually not making a lot of money because they don't treat it like a real profession, right? So I would just say that it wasn't that I was intimidated because I didn't know, and then obviously all of the I guess the false narratives of like, damn, can you really buy a property without having to buy a property? Like, can you really make money, you know, without facing it and all this? So I was kind of a little skeptical about it. But at the end of the day, I just told myself, I mean, like, you know, who's gonna retire my mom? I'm an only child. So at the end of the day, I gotta do this, right? I gotta be able to do something else to make sure that, you know, this generation keeps going. So I was like, fuck it, let me just try. Because the other thing too is like, insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result.
Amen.
And a lot of the times that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, is that we expect to get something different even though we keep doing the same exact thing over and over and over again.
So here in a second, let's start talking about leads and deals, particularly in your business today, but I wanted to piggyback off the realtor thing. One of the problems that the REI space has is vanity metrics. Vanity metrics. So vanity metrics are numbers that are only there to increase your vanity, to make you look good, but aren't substantive. And so one of the things you'll hear realtors say is, I did $3 million last year. nobody. You didn't do $3 million. You may have sold $3 million worth of homes, which means you ended up walking away with 90,000. Like it's
brokerage did 3 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So they play that game too.
And so it's one of those things that's a vanity metric. Here in the REI wholesaling space, people will tell me, hey, I got 14 leads a day from my cold callers and wherever, Egypt, Philippines, doesn't matter where at. I'm like, no, you got 14 records sent to you, bro. You didn't get 14 leads. Out of those, probably only one. Or the worst is projected revenue. In the REI space, you got these wholesalers, Joe just locked up another one, 50K. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you haven't even assigned it yet.
Yeah.
You haven't even dispoed it yet. And so vanity metrics is something, that's the reason why, again, I was so excited to have you here, because you can smell the authenticity and you can see the numbers, and I know you're really big on transparency on that side.
Yeah.
So that's my rant on vanity metrics. Let's talk about leads. In your REI space or in your coaching space, what are you doing today to generate leads? What is your definition of a lead? Help us understand how you feel about the marketing side of your current business to help these guys maybe pick up some tips or strategies.
Yeah, so the first thing that we do is, we look at KPIs. I mean, I think a lot of the times if you're not tracking your key performing indicators, you're flying blind and you don't have a predictable business, right? At the end of the day, if you don't know what you're gonna make tomorrow, if you don't know what you got going on, it's a risky business, because we know how it goes. You close one deal, you get your money back, a bill happens, life happens, and now you're back to square one, and now you can't even afford props, stream, data, or anything, right? So key performing indicators is really, really key. So what I like to look at is, first, I go from campaign. So I look at the campaign, right? Then I look at obviously the data. I look at the caller or the person on the phone.
Yep.
Then I look at the list. So that's typically what I look at first. For example, I might look at, okay, let's see, how's this person talking? How many leads are they actually converting into close? Are they contracting? Whatever the case may be. And then we may go back into coaching. Is it tonality? Is it closing? Are they making the offer, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if that's not the issue, then we go into obviously the skip tracing. Okay, let's look at the dollar. What's the connect rate? What's the voice, what's the percentages of what's going on there? Then if that's not the issue, then we go obviously into the list, right? Could it be the list? Do we maybe get a new list, or whatever the case may be? And then the last but not least is gonna be obviously your campaign. I believe that all marketing channels work, because at the end of the day, we're all different types of personalities, right? So what I like to do is I'll take one list, let's just say 200,000 records. I'll go ahead and put it through what's called a conveyor belt method, which you might have heard. So we'll go from the cheapest form of marketing to the most expensive form of marketing. And we squeeze every single lead, every single opportunity of that list out. So we might start with, let's just say, text messaging. Then we'll go ahead, everybody that's suppressed, we might get a couple of leads, deals, whatever the case may be. We'll take the rest of that, go into RVM. Then we'll take the rest of that, go into cold calling. We're getting the rest of that, and we'll go into, maybe direct mail, whatever the case may be. So that's how we've been able to go ahead and do that and squeeze it. Now, in some markets, it just works well to do certain things. But I think that it's very, very important that you understand, and we talk about this, that your new list is somebody else's old list. When I first got started, I used to pull the tax delinquent list like every four months, maybe, because I was like, damn, I need more leads. And after a while, I started to notice that apparently, though, they actually pull to the list the tax roll is you. So I was pulling the same list every 4 months. And the craziest thing is that every time that I pulled it, I would get new deals. And that's what led me to realize is that in my business, I needed between 5 to 8 touches to actually get an opportunity. So that's why when people say, I do agree with maybe data as far as your phone numbers and things of that nature, but a list, how many times in one zip code can a property literally become vacant? Yeah. How many times can somebody really get divorced? Or somebody can fall into probate, right? It's not a huge astronomical number. So at the end of the day, it's more about following up. It's about having empathy, and it's about creating a friend. Go watch Toy Story.
Yeah, I think that one of the worst things that ever hit this industry, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it because I know you were in the space prior to me getting into this space, but I think the 7-minute cash offer, and this is my opinion, and let's feel free to hash it out here. I think the 7-minute cash offer was one of the worst coaching strategies that ever happened in this industry, only because you took people who had no sales skills and then you encouraged them to have no rapport time, you encouraged them to have no discovery time. Yeah. Not saying you, but the industry encouraged them to have the 7-minute cash offer thing. Now, it's one thing to tell the customer, hey, listen, it'll take about 7 minutes, but that's cool, that's a hook to get the customer to stick on phone for 45 minutes, but trying to identify the pain points that these people have and get to their real bottom line price. One of the things I say is it takes time to take homes. And if you're not willing to take the time to build the relationship with the seller over the phone, then you're not going to get the type of spreads that I know that you were telling me about earlier. Said, hey, it doesn't matter. I don't need 4 deals to make 40K. My sales process is tight enough where we can have that one deal to make 40K, and I'm doing 3x or 4x less the effort to produce it. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that really fast sales cycle, or is it boom, that's just what we're doing because we're putting out?
No, I mean, I think I would agree with you. I think that a lot right now is because of social media. There's just a lot of bad coaching out there. There's just a lot of people that it's a blind leading the blind. People that honestly might have done 1 or 2 deals and now it's like, hey, I'm actually a better coach or a better marketer, so I'm just gonna go ahead and teach other people how to do this. And unfortunately, it's not really about that. I think what we do as wholesaling, I think you're really there to connect the pieces and you're there to really help somebody. I'll give you an example. A deal we just closed that made $65,000. We built so much rapport that on the way to the title company, they actually emailed the title company saying, hey, we're actually going to the hospital because my uncle doesn't feel well. So they actually ended up going to the hospital, closing days the next day. We built so much rapport that the notary went to the hospital and signed the closing documents at the hospital while he was there, because he felt that comfortable even while I guess they were in pain or whatever they had going on, right? And once again, go on my IG, I'll be posting it soon as well. We don't cap, but at the end of the day, it's just so crazy because it is about that. It does take time, right? I mean, you have to be able to let somebody know, hey, I'm here for you and I'm here to let you understand that these are all all your solutions. These are what we can provide for you. These are the things that we want to be able to help you with. And it's kind of difficult when there's a lot of bad sour apples like doing stuff like that, because in all reality, now you're chasing the money, you're not chasing the impact. And the greatest thing about us too is that we'll take a testimonial just like that, and then we'll go ahead and have more sellers go ahead and come in and say, wow, I love doing business with him because look at what he did with that person. Because you're in any type of market, you have to understand, like, you're calling the same list I'm calling. We're saying the same, I can close fast, pay your close. We're saying all the same stuff. So for me, what I tell my team and how I literally help my students is an acronym I made up called SMART without an A. It's our benefits. It's save money, risk, and time. And that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to go ahead and help you save money, risk, and time. How are we gonna do that? We're obviously gonna do it by, I'm gonna help you save 10%, 6% on closing, on commissions, up to 4% in closing costs you don't have to pay for. I'm gonna buy your property as is, and we can close at a time frame of your own thing. So I like to teach my students and my sales team acronyms because once again, it's a process, and anywhere that you're at, you can be at, in Publix, I can be here in Pereira with you, and I can literally close somebody over the phone because I know what my accomplishment is. When I get on a sales call, I treat it like a GPS. Like, I know where my destination is, but I know that sometimes Waze might say there's a bump in the road, there's a cop here, but I understand where I'm going and what I have to identify to get that person there. And a lot of the times it's like speed date. Like, if I wouldn't date a girl that's taller than me, why am I gonna stay on a date?
Amen.
If you don't want to date a man that doesn't clean his fingernails, why would you stay on that date? And a lot of times in sales, we have to understand our avatar. We have to stop looking for just the money fall and the money pit and say, hey, can I really provide a solution? Because the bigger solutions you provide, the more money you make.
So one of the things that we teach, it's 100% in line with what you're saying, is educate first, then help. People don't take the time to educate the seller exactly why your services are the smart choice, as you just put it. And so you're trying to rush somebody through a sales cycle, but how naive of you, sales women and sales guys out there. The largest transaction that they've ever gone through in their entire life was this house. And you're gonna virtual call them from a different state in a different city, and you're gonna rush them through that. Have some respect for these sellers. The reality is they want to trust the process, but they can't trust the process if you don't educate them on the process. And so for me, one of the values that we provide here with our cold calling company is just generating immense amount of rapport, immense amount of value, helping them feel like they won or were selected to speak to our affiliate out there. But lead generation is everything. We also do PPC in my own wholesaling office as well too. And me and you were talking about this earlier. We both agree that if you can do cold calling, you can do any other marketing channel out there. But there's some other marketing channels that you can start on, you might not be able to go down into. So me and him, we both love cold calling. Is that your primary lead source right now? Or you text RVM?
When I first got started, it was straight direct mail. Like, direct mail was my bread and butter. I love direct mail. But then as you start looking at KPI, you start to look at what's called your cost per lead. And now you're like, okay, well, how do I maximize profit? And for me, it was like, well, direct mail is cool, but at the end of the day, I still have to get these people on the phone. I still have to talk to them. Remember, this is a people's-based business, and I'll just be honest with you, man. You have to have that machismo. You have to have that confidence. You have to have that charisma. You have to be able to be educated in what you're talking about, because these people are getting called every single day. Like one of the biggest things that helped me out is that I knew the process, I knew exactly what my contract said, and I also knew how to identify pain points. That's a lot of the times when you're looking at scripts and things of that nature, you don't realize that you're like in this robotic just movement. Like try to figure out what is the real why. Like what hurts you? What is hurting them right now? Like why? Because it's all a byproduct, right? The house is a byproduct for money and the money is a byproduct for the desired state. So sales is literally painting a picture of their desired state. If I can paint this picture of you down in Oregon because you want to downgrade and you want to go ahead and have your dog. And so many times, like even with Scott, he might have not even mentioned it here, but something that I do is just become accustomed to it is I mention your name like probably a bunch of times. So I might say Scott while I'm here. Number one, I don't want to look bad if I forget his name, which I wouldn't. But number two is that I do that on the phone when I'm closing people. Because the worst thing that you can do is literally forget somebody's name.
Yep.
And these are just small tips and tricks that people just don't realize when they're on the phone that go a long way, right? You may hear dog barking in the background, right? If it's a poodle, well, guess what? I love poodles today. If you're a Trump supporter, I love Trump today too. Like whatever it is, because at the end of the day, these are just little minuscule things for me to help you solve your big problem. And going back to what you said, the average American only buys and owns a home twice in their lifetime, right? So you are dealing with a big asset and a big decision. And it's also understanding, is it more sentimental value that they have here, or can we really get a deal done?
Do you think that people are, your students, when they're coming to you for help, they're needing more help on the lead gen or the deal side? Conversion of the lead or conversion into a lead?
I think that it's more so conversion of the lead.
All right, so let's move into that.
Yeah.
So obviously everybody knows that you have a coaching group, that you're known in this space for providing value, taking people who are looking at getting into this industry and getting their first deals, or taking guys that are getting their first deals and providing them stability to scale and grow.
Yeah.
So on that deal side, what is the problem that people are having the most when they come to you in general about getting that first deal or starting to scale up their deal side?
I think number one is that they don't build enough rapport to feel good about the offer that they make. Right? Like if me and Scott become great friends, which I'm pretty sure we will, there might not be a lot of things that we cannot talk about. He might say, hey Scott, or he might say, hey Brandon, you gotta get in the gym. Or I might say, hey man, you gotta do this or whatever. Because when you feel comfortable with somebody, you're there telling them not constructive criticism, it's there to help them out, to bring value. So a lot of the times when you don't feel comfortable with somebody, right, or you feel like you may disrespect them, you don't wanna impose or intrude, right? So a lot of the times what that means that you just haven't made enough rapport on that call to say, hey, I can actually only offer you this. But a lot of times it ain't me. You know, I might blame the market. Hey, listen, I'm looking at this, you know, and unfortunately the market won't allow me to do this. You know, hey, my fiance won't allow me to do this, right? Or hey, you know, do you know this person, whatever the case may be. So it's all about rebuttals, but it's also understanding that you have to build rapport. Like we as emotional people, we're emotional buyers. The reason why these sellers are there is because they're emotionally put in this situation. Some type of hardship happened that they decided to let their biggest asset obviously either be in bad condition or now to be sold, or to be sold in obviously cheap and fast. So something is going on emotionally right now in their life that you have to go ahead and help them solve, and it's bigger than just a house.
So I always say they sign the wholesale contract with emotion, they show up to the titling office because of logic.
Right.
But when you lock them up that first time, it's an emotional transaction. It has to be emotionally based, and it has to be able to provide value. One of the things you just said that struck a chord with me, it's like, hey, me personally in my own life, I respect coaches. I love the drill sergeant type mentality. But if I don't respect that person, I'm never gonna let them guide me forcefully.
100%.
And so a lot of times in this industry, these guys and gals, they don't have that sales, you call it machismo, or they don't have that swag in that presentation, that it.
Yeah.
But you can get the it. The it exists.
It can be taught.
It's there. But once you have that with the customers, not only will they say the wildest things to you, but you can say the wildest things back to them. And so we just try to teach everybody out there that, hey, listen, if you treat this like a true profession, and I think a lot of people really they don't understand what the power. Imagine if you were an orator amongst orators. David Goggins says, be uncommon amongst the uncommon, right? So what if you were a salesman amongst the salesmen? What if you were a closer amongst the closers that the other closers look up to? That's what we want to try to get you from a mindset standpoint out there, because you talked about retiring your mom. I know what it's like to ship my parents a big box, and inside of it is a smaller box, and inside of it an envelope, and inside of that is a hideaway key, and inside of that was a blank key with a check, and I bought my parents their house. I did that because of sales and what it's done for me and what it's done for my life. And so we always say, it's like, hey, listen, thank you, my man. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't take sales professionally and I didn't take it seriously. And so for you guys and gals out there that are struggling on the deals, I think, yes, it's about, hey, creating rapport, but have the tenacity to get through your nose. Like in your prime, you might be 1 out of 12. You're starting out, you're gonna be 1 out of 40. You might even be 1 out of a damn 100 out there. But if you don't have the gumption to stick through those 99 no's to get to your first yes, to build confidence, so the next time it's 1 out of 75, and then the time after that it's 1 out of 65, and the time after that it's 1 out of 50, and before you know it, you're one of the elite that's closing 1 out of 10 out of everybody you talk to. You just have the stamina and capacity to get through it out there. And so hopefully you see that journey in your students as well too, where they just, once they break ice, they have a shot at being able to make this a real deal thing.
Here's what it is. People don't stay long enough in the game to see the success. Entrepreneurship is like obtaining a 6-pack. It's just what it is. Like it's just really hard in the beginning. It's hard even after, but once that dopamine kicks of what you look like and how it makes you feel, and then also how you're perceived, it'll never stop. You'll always want that dopamine. So the thing is when we talked about this, is like, we are born losing, right? Many of us, right? We don't come from a rich family, but hopefully a rich family will come from us. And it ends up being that it's actually fearful to win because it doesn't seem like you can do it. But once you do break ice, it's all said and done. And I promise it's one of those things that'll have the best feeling in the world. And then the best feeling too is making money with people that you love. Because I'll tell you this, it's very, very lonely when you're the only one that can afford what you can do.
Amen.
I'm going to tell you that. And then going back to the sales part, I think also what a lot of people like struggle with is self-awareness of like what's going on in the call. Like they don't know when to pull back. They don't know when to stop. They don't know when to push a little bit harder. It's like, well, this is what Scott or Brandon said on YouTube, so I'm just gonna follow it exactly and not even like look up. Like, imagine if we both did this podcast and we both stare at each other but never looked at the camera. Yeah. Like, we would never know what's going on. We would never be engaging with you guys. A lot of times you're on sales calls, sales pitches, and you're literally just dialed in on what you learned or what you're trying to accomplish, but you're not really taking a feel for the moment of what's going on.
So you'll probably like this. We talked a lot about Wolf of Wall Street and Jordan Belfort. One of Jordan Belfort's anchors in his sales process is the straight line technique.
Yeah.
And so we teach them the straight line technique based on our sales cycle here. But we also teach them how to ride the wave. How do you surf the wave? How do you add your personality between every single step of the straight line technique? Because that's where that charisma, that's where that personality is. And having the seller, which will take you, every seller takes you off the straight line technique. I promise you, they're gonna say something that's gonna take you over here, but how do you surf that bad boy right back into the next part of your sales process? Because if I were, as you were just saying, only gonna execute on the straight line and I didn't allow that to have the personality, the human touch, I will fail. So I would just say first is identify what your straight line technique is. You used the conveyor belt system earlier. I love the conveyor belt. I think that every sales process is a conveyor belt. I can't put the steering wheel on my car until I get the steering column. I can't do the steering column until I get my chassis. I can't do my chassis until I get the frame. And so you have all these different parts. It has to happen. It doesn't necessarily have to happen in 100% of a strict order, but you want to have a unifying order to it because it gives you consistency. Until you have consistency, your KPIs mean shit. Like until you know that like, okay, I've done enough of these to know what my output is of input. I know enough of this to know my output. I know what my ROI should be. If you're not tracking CPL, which is cost per lead in your business, and CPD, cost per deal in your business based off a marketing channel, same thing with CPL, you are never going to scale. You will be a hot mess, always searching for the next way to make your rent payment, and probably within a year or so abandon the industry. So
a solopreneur.
So with that being said, any other tips or advice you would give to people on the deal side of this space? Like, hey man,
Closing a deal,
man. Let's talk about money.
I mean, I'll kind of give them a preface of like what I like to do on a call when I'm talking to sellers. What I like to do is I like to kind of take them through, it's like dating, right? dating is essentially, you know, you like somebody, you meet them, you kind of vet them, and the more and more you like them, hopefully you go towards marriage and obviously, you know, building a life. And it's the same thing on a call. I'm trying to figure out, are you my avatar? Are you this person that I would like to be with? Are you the perfect seller for me? So, you know, the first 5 seconds gets you the first 10 and 15 and so on, right? So it's all about that first impression. So number one, obviously, you always want to assume that the person is that person on the phone. I don't care if I'm calling for a man and a woman picks up, because it could have been obviously the husband. And now if you sound like a telemarketer, they're not going to want to pass you their phone. Number two is I tell them literally what we look at, but also what I do is called flashlight, right? So I typically say something like this. We typically look at 2 different types of properties. A, properties that are basically renovated, that are comparable to 2023 properties that may need no work and can be listed on the market, or B, properties that may be investor friendly and could use some work. So flashlighting, what I'm doing is number 2, people typically tend to remember the last thing you said. So whatever my answer I want to be is going to be B always. Number 2 is that I'm making A really strict. So that I guess you could say that A choice is really strict, right? Comparable to 2023, renovated and listed on the market, ready to go. I'm making it really, really hard for them to choose A. And then the last part of flashlighting that I'm doing is that I'm saying it with a tonality that's pretty authoritative and really like strong, versus with B, I'm like more welcoming. So I want you to welcome. It's kind of like you go into a restaurant and you're like, hey, well, what do you recommend? It's like, oh, well, people come in for the steak, but I like this.
Yep.
You can tell the tonality shifted because now she's being genuine. Now she's being authentic and she's saying, hey, this is my honest truth. So there's a lot of forms of way that you can learn these types of sales techniques. Another thing we do is a lot of reverse psychology. So for example, I say, okay, there's another mistake that people do is they try to tell you what your house is worth. I don't do that. You have lived there for 20 years. Why would I tell you what I think your house is worth? What I do is I ask you, well, what do you think your house is worth? Then I ask you, well, what would you do if time and money wasn't an issue? What would you change? I don't say renovate because it sounds like a lot of money. I don't say home because it sounds sentimental. I say property, right? So there's a lot of little different techniques that you want to use to understand how to put somebody in a sales psychosis. And we kind of revert that back. So if they say, yeah, you know, I think my house is worth $200,000. And in the beginning of the conversation, they say, okay, well, yeah, I mean, I think it would take maybe 30K. And I don't ask that. What I say is, I give them the answer. So certain things you may want to say, hey, you know what, do you think it'll take 10, 20, 30K? I wouldn't say 1,000 because it sounds like a lot, but I would say K. Let's just say later on, we'll talk about something else and I'll bring it up. I say, okay, well, listen, you know, based on what you told me earlier, do you think your property is worth, you know, 200K before or after the 30K that you said it would need to change? So now what I've done is I've kind of courted them, but based on their information. It's kind of like you saying that you're fat versus I'm saying you're fat.
Yep.
I didn't disrespect you. You said it yourself. So now you basically told me this information. So all I'm doing is trying to get you to be self-aware of the problem that you may not have known that you've had. But also it's kind of like John Wick. I'm literally trying to see like where you're hurt. And I'm just trying to push that little bruise or push that broken hand to get you to understand like, oh, that hurts, but let me help you. Let me show you the way. Let me get you treated.
And don't be afraid of the pain. I know it may sound terrible, but you got to understand, again, a lot of times we're a release valve. And if you truly believe we're providing value, let's make sure we help them appreciate the value that we're doing. And if somebody mentions something about a divorce or cancer or something that's going on in their lives, it's truly be empathetic. Don't just skip over it. Too many times I'll hear an agent or somebody on the phone, they're like, yeah, unfortunately, medical costs are so high right now. And so that's the reason why I'd want to sell. Okay, stop. Let's talk about this for a second. He just opened the door. Let's dive back into it and say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Steve. You know, do you mind sharing with me a little bit more about what's kind of going on? Well, you know, candidly, my wife has X, Y, and Z. Good gracious. And how's that affecting their daily life? Because what you'll end up finding out is the reason why they didn't want to sell to a realtor is because their wife now is immobilized in a wheelchair and they don't want to have strangers walking through the house, and that they want to be able to find a way to preserve her own respect for her own household and for herself, because now she's got to wear a nightgown all the time so that way it's easy for her to get to the bathroom. And you never would have found that out if you would have just breezed past the fact that he said he's got medical bill problems. And so digging into that and identifying that and finding their pain points, something you just said that I will take to heart and it'll be something that lasts with me forever. I love it. I've never heard it before, with sales psychosis.
Yeah.
I love that. I called it put them in the ether, but sales psychosis is what it is you got them on a vibe. They're integrating. You have them under your...
It's a trance.
It's a trance.
But what they don't understand, it's a positive trance, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's just so crazy because it's one of those things where if you do it the correct way, you're really helping them with something that they didn't even know they might have need help with.
Yeah.
It's a problem, right? Another thing that we do well as well is we eliminate the competitors. Like, you have to know who your competition is. So number one, obviously, since I was a realtor, I use that to my advantage to say, well, hey, listen, this is what I'm not gonna do because I've been there already, right? And I don't think that this is what you want to do, right, as well. Number two is obviously other wholesalers, right? So we downplay them, or a lot of the times we don't really downplay them because there is some truth to it, to where if you talk negative about somebody, it shows a lot about you. What we do is we say, this is what we won't do, that some of the people that you may have talked to might do.
Yep.
Right? And then the last thing is the biggest one, which is them. They're their own biggest competition. They're their own biggest hurdle, right? And it's getting them to trust us to say, you know what, we'll be able to do it. So we'll send over like company commitments, letting them know what we'll do. You know, we'll let them know, hey, you know, this, and we're not those types of people who are going to do a price reduction after whatever we give you, whatever we submit, this is what we're going to close on, unless something huge happens. And then we also say, hey, listen, Google this title company. This is obviously our title company, and his name is Ryan. I'm going to let him know that you're going to be calling him, and ask him any questions about me and my business.
Wow. That's great, man.
This is a sense of trust.
It is too, and they've all been burnt before. There's a lot of scumbags in this space. Let's just be honest. There's a lot of kids. I watch them too. You know what's so funny is that they also don't respect the process. I love the signs on the side of the road saying, "Hey, buy a house cash fast." All these things. I'll call them just to figure out how long it takes for them to call me back.
Yeah, they don't
I'll
pick
fill
up.
out a form on PPC just to see how many days it takes for these guys to call me back. So just having initiative, just being a grinder, it's going to get you so far in this space. So I love the tactics that you gave them. Let me ask you, one of the issues I think that this industry has is a no problem. What I mean by that is that they get to the end of the sales cycle and the customer's like, thank you so much for providing me all this. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go talk to my spouse, and these people are like, okay, well, great. I'll send you a contract. And if you signed it, but if you have any questions, call me back. And they can't get a no. They can't get a yes. They can't get a no. So we have tactics that we make sure that I would rather get a no than a maybe. 100% of the times. I ain't got time for maybes. I ain't chasing you back. I'm not putting you in a 3-month drip cycle. My system will, but for my closers, I need steady KPIs. And so I know that there's a maybe and a no problem. They need to get some no's instead of waiting for the be back bus. So any quick tactics real quick before we wrap it up on how they get more contracts signed?
I would say that it's more about framing and
Exactly.
just like your word sequencing, right? Like if somebody was to tell me that, like, hey, well, I have to talk with my husband. Well, okay, would your husband be opposed to you guys both making more money and going out to Florida the way that you promised to help your daughter be able to have some more money for tuition?
Yep.
You know? And obviously I would say their name. You know, hey, would Scott be opposed to both you guys living the dream life that you wanted, to be able to have $67,000 in your bank account, be able to believe, you know? Because now what you're doing is that you're calling their bluff, right? And I might do the same thing with the husband. So with the husband, since we're men, ego, well, hey, Scott, I mean, you sound like a person that knows what you would want. So is this not what you want? Because typically a confused mind says no. So was it the fact that I didn't give you enough information, or was it the price? So it's all about like asking the question in a way that's gonna get you the answer that you're looking for. And I think that's another big problem that a lot of the times we have. Like the question I hate the most is, hey, have you renovated the property in the last 12 months? It's the most stupidest question ever. Why? Because at the end of the day, of course they're gonna say the most things that they did, and if not, they're not gonna tell you. Like, why would they want to tell you that they haven't done shit? Like, it's the most stupidest question. So what you have to do is you have to literally put all the rebuttals out and ask the question in a way that's going to get you the answer that you're looking for, right? So it's kind of like a rhetorical question, right? So if money and time wasn't a factor, what changes would you make to the property?
Yeah.
Like, very simple. You ask the question in a way. Another thing that we do is called the assumption clause. I'm pretty sure you've done it before, right? People say, hey, Brandon, well, how do I get people to give me like the mortgage, and how do I get them to tell me how much they're getting in rent? Very simple. You literally assume, right? You say, okay, well, yeah, you're getting about $1,000. Okay, got you. You owe more than 100 grand? Oh, you don't owe anything at all. Okay, got you. And you're looking to sell less than 30 days, correct? Easy. And then when you do that with timeshare, obviously skill sets, right? It's also called the yes ladder, right? So where you put them in this sales psychosis where, okay, so listen, just to reconfirm, you do want to go back to Florida, right? You do want to sell today, right? You do want to do this. Okay, you do like beaches, and you do want to help your family. Okay, yes. And then you say whatever you said.
So one of the things we learned face-to-face sales is literally your neck would almost hurt at the end of the day because you would just do these very negligible, hardly visible. You would ask him questions like, it seems like this probably benefit you and your family, maybe help you take a little bit better vacations, right? And you would tie him down, but you're constantly nodding yes. And so we learned a lot of those tie downs in the conversation. To piggyback what you were saying about the rebuttals and how to help these people sign more contracts, one of the things that I train on is amateurs practice till they get it right, professionals practice till they can't get it wrong. Like that's a vibe, right? So amateurs practice till they get it right, professionals practice till they can't get it wrong. But then I was thinking about like objections and rebuttals, and I said, oh, there's even another level than that. Instead of just having your rebuttals down to the objections you're going to get when you ask for the business, how about owning the objection? And you own the objection by presenting it before the seller can present it. So if I am on a one-leg call and I'm only with the spouse and I know that there's a hidden thing, I want to bring it up before they bring it up. I want to bring it up and then nullify it. Every objection, guys, it's simple. It's sales. What? We could write out on a soccer ball the 10 things you might possibly hear while you're on a sales call. So I think also not being afraid of the objections, because the worst thing that can happen in a sales cycle is they don't bring it up, you don't bring it up, and then it pops into their head after they've signed the contract. Because you might think you have an ironclad contract and you're going to get the Florida attorney to force them to execute. Good luck spending a lot of money and a lot of time. It don't have to be like that. What you want to do is cover the objections, own the objections before they present themselves, get it out of the customer. The customer has no's in their mouth that they have to spill out. Don't let them keep any no's in. You're not slick by bullying them and rushing them. Let the no's flow. It'll get you to the yes, and there won't be any problems post-contract.
And I think being transparent, like being honest. If you don't know something, tell them that you will find out, and because getting caught in a lie, it's over for you, right?
It built the value.
Yeah. Like people like honest people, and not only that as well. What next thing I was gonna say too is I think that will help with people getting more deals is fear of the unknown. Like the seller, a lot of times this may be their first time dealing with somebody that just randomly called them on the phone, right? Or maybe even selling the property. So what I mean by fear of the unknown is breaking down the process of what happens after you sign this agreement. Notice I said agreement, not contract. Contract feels like you're obligated. So what we say is, hey, listen, this is just a promise to do business. We're now going to go ahead and send this over to the title company. You're going to receive a copy. After that, we're going to do what's called a municipal lien search, okay? Then that's going to tell us this. We're going to do a title company search. So now what we're doing is positioning them to say, oh no, everything's good on me. We're taking it off of this is a transaction, right? Then after that, typically what I say is, hey, okay, well, listen, just so I can know and let the title company know as well, how would you like to receive your money, by wire or by check? So we're painting that desire state again for them to understand, like, listen, this is going to be great, phenomenal for you. Just think about what's going to happen after this process is done.
And doing that also as a trial close, it's like the lead up to your close, because if you can start painting them in that picture, how would you like to receive your funds? What day would you like to close? When you start soft asking those questions leading into your final close, which is, hey, listen, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to send you a copy of our purchase agreement. It's a simple 3-page document. We've written it in 4th grade English to make sure that blah, blah, blah. But those trial closes, oh, it's so sexy. It's so beautiful to hear that you use those as well, too, because it's going to get any objections out before you have to ask for the final commitment.
And the thing is, too, like Scott just said, it's like, you use them, I use them, it works. The thing is, you have to use them. Like, you have to actually implement. What I talk about all the time is what would have happened if Martin Luther King had a dream but never did nothing about that dream. So a lot of the times, guys, implementation, right, means like everything. If you can educate yourself, but if you don't implement, nothing ever is going to happen for you. Nothing will transpire out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it, man. So for everybody out there that has a dream, financial independence, being able to provide value back to your community, being able to get your mom, your family, your friends out of a situation. A lot of you guys and gals out there that maybe listen to this, if you're in the streets, if you will, right? If you and your buddies are doing whatever you can to hustle and come up, nothing would make me more happier to know that you guys flipped all that hustle muscle into the REI space. It's possible. No more looking through your rear view, no more worrying about some nonsense. There's an ability for you to use that same capacity to generate wealth in a legal way. You can do it. You can spend little dollars up front and pull in monster wholesale fees, start building your REI empire if you take the 2 parts of your business that matter the most, leads and deals. If you take leads seriously, if you take deals seriously, if you follow guys like him, I'm telling you, his coaching course, his mentorship, following guys like him to be able to learn through osmosis will change your trajectory of your life. So how do they follow you, Brandon? How do people learn more to hear more about your sales concepts?
Nah, for sure. I mean, you can follow me on social media, Blue Notes Brandon, across platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, I mean, just reach out. I can try to help you as much as I can, obviously with the limited time. But I know we're gonna end it here. I just want to say something because it's on my mind. Talking about people, you know, hustling and all that good stuff, you have to understand that you're risking your life and we're just risking our money. Like, you guys are already doing a lot more than what we would do, because in all reality, you're going back to a corner knowing somebody just got shot there, right? Risking your life, where for us, we're not doing that. We're risking, obviously, our money. And guys, it's a lot of the stuff that you guys may be doing translate into what we're doing, right? It's just a different product. It's just a different product. So I just love what you said. I had to add that piece of it. And yeah, I mean, it's been...
Yeah, and listen, guys, if you're working for somebody else doing sales and you're like the beast at the car dealership, you're the beast at the solar panels guys, you're the beast, but you're working for somebody else, having that autonomy by taking those sales skills, following guys like him to learn the REI space and apply those to these types of mechanisms, that's what's gonna help you get into this space. If you already do sales, whether it's on the street or whether it's for a car dealership, you have the skills to get into this. And if you don't do sales, that's the reason why you listen and absorb and follow podcasts like these, because we want to teach you all the tactics to start where you have to begin, generating leads. And once you get leads, follow these concepts, you'll generate deals. Brandon, it's a pleasure, my man, having a guy like you here on the podcast. Let's go, guys. Subscribe, Blue Notes Brandon, @Leads to Deals. We'll catch you on the next episode.